When we think about survival, we often imagine knives, shelters, or fire. But during World War II, survival sometimes came down to something far simpler: a piece of cloth. A fabric so remarkable that it saved pilots from freezing seas, soldiers from monsoon jungles, and explorers from Arctic winds. A fabric lighter than canvas, quieter than nylon, and capable of keeping water out without a single drop of plastic or chemical coating. They called it ventile, the miracle cloth. And somehow, the world forgot about it. World War II wasn't just fought with weapons, it was fought against nature itself. From the frozen coasts of Norway to the tropical swamps of Burma, soldiers faced an invisible but relentless enemy: water, wind, and cold. Ordinary canvas tents soaked through within hours. Tarred fabrics cracked in the sun and rotted in the rain. Oilcloths turned heavy and stiff, adding pounds to a soldier's gear. And for pilots who went down at sea, even the best survival suits couldn't keep them alive long in the icy Atlantic. The military realized something unexpected. Their soldiers weren't dying from bullets. They were dying from exposure. So, a new kind of engineering began, not for tanks or planes, but for fabric. British and American textile researchers were tasked with an almost impossible challenge: create a fabric that could breathe, resist water, and survive extreme cold, without becoming heavy or brittle. At the time, synthetics like nylon were still in their infancy. Nylon parachutes existed, but they melted near fire, tore easily, and made unbearable noise in the wind. So the engineers turned back to nature, specifically to Egyptian cotton and long staple flax, natural fibers known for their exceptional strength and fineness. But instead of simply coating these fabrics with oils or waxes like old tarpaulins, they wanted something different: a fabric that was inherently water-resistant, not just treated to be. And that's when they discovered something extraordinary: that under the right weave density, cotton could tighten itself when wet. In 1941, the Royal Air Force commissioned a small team of engineers in Manchester to develop a survival suit for downed pilots. They needed something that could keep a man alive in freezing seawater long enough to be rescued. The result was ventile, a fabric so finely woven that a single square inch contained hundreds of interlocking cotton threads. When dry, it allowed air to pass through, keeping the pilot cool and comfortable. But when water hit the surface, each tiny cotton fiber absorbed a bit of moisture and swelled, closing the gaps between threads until the fabric became nearly waterproof. It was a self-sealing system. No coatings, no rubber, no oil. Just the physics of nature, perfectly exploited. To test it, the RAF dunked pilots wearing ventile suits into freezing water. And what they found was astonishing. While older canvas or oiled suits leaked within minutes, the ventile fabric kept water out long enough for pilots to survive up to 20 extra minutes. That may not sound like much, but in near-freezing seas, it often meant the difference between life and death. Rescue boats could finally arrive before hypothermia set in. It wasn't just about comfort. It was about extending the limits of human endurance, with nothing more than cotton. Ventile didn't stay limited to pilots. As word spread, it found its way into nearly every corner of the war effort. In the Arctic, soldiers wore ventile parkas that stayed flexible even at sub-zero temperatures, unlike oil-treated canvas that froze solid. In the deserts of North Africa, it became a barrier against sand and scorching wind. In the jungles of Burma and New Guinea, commandos used ventile ponchos that doubled as ground sheets, stretchers, and rain covers. The fabric adapted to any climate: cold, heat, humidity, without rotting, tearing, or losing its strength. It even resisted flames better than nylon, which melted instantly when exposed to sparks. To the men who used it, Ventile felt like magic. So how could simple cotton outperform modern synthetics? The secret was in the microscopic structure. When dry, each cotton fiber has a tiny hollow core. When wet, that core swells, expanding the fiber outward. Multiply that by thousands of threads tightly woven together, and the fabric transforms into an organic shield. It's not waterproof by coating. It's waterproof by compression. That's why Ventile never cracked or peeled. There was nothing to wear off, because the waterproofing came from the fiber itself. Even more impressive, it remained breathable. You could sweat inside it, and it would still let vapor escape, keeping the wearer comfortable instead of clammy. By the late 1940s, Ventile had become legendary among those who had used it. Polar explorers wore it into the Arctic. Mountaineers trusted it over plasticized fabrics that tore in wind. But as post-war industries exploded with cheap synthetics, nylon, polyester, PVC, Ventile's story faded. It was expensive to weave, required specialized mills, and couldn't compete with the mass production of plastics. Ironically, the most natural, long-lasting solution was replaced by the very materials that age poorly and pollute the planet. Yet, for those who knew, for the old RAF pilots, the explorers, and the bushcrafters, Ventile remained something sacred, a lost art of textile engineering. Now here's the good news. You can still reproduce something close to Ventile at home. Start with the tightest weave of cotton or linen you can find. Ideally, 300 to 400 threads per inch. Then, create a natural water-resistant finish. Mix boiled linseed oil with beeswax in about a 10:1 ratio. 10 parts oil to 1 part wax. Warm it gently until it blends. Then soak your cloth in it and stretch it flat to dry for 2 or 3 days. This won't make a true Ventile fabric, but it mimics its performance beautifully. The fibers absorb the oil, tighten, and form a flexible, breathable barrier. After curing, the result is a sustainable tarp or poncho that resists water and lasts for decades. No plastic, no microfibers, no waste. Even a single treated sheet of this kind of fabric can serve many purposes in the field. A ground cover to block moisture from the earth. A windbreak for cooking fires. A gear wrap to protect tools from rust. Or a makeshift poncho that won't rip in the rain. It's silent, durable, and strong. Perfect for long-term outdoor living or bushcraft setups where stealth and reliability matter more than shine or brand names. The story of this WWII fabric isn't just about a clever invention. It's about what happens when human ingenuity meets necessity. When survival depends not on luxury, but on understanding nature. These engineers didn't have polymers or carbon fibers. They had looms, microscopes, and patience. They studied how cotton swelled, how weave density affected pressure, and how to use the laws of physics to save lives. It's a reminder that innovation doesn't always mean something new. Sometimes, the best solutions are rediscoveries. Nature perfected through craftsmanship. Today, Ventile is still quietly used by polar researchers, by bush pilots, and by survivalists who understand its legacy. But most of the world has forgotten it. Yet, this cloth, this simple, silent miracle of woven cotton, stands as proof that the old ways still have lessons for the future. Because real survival isn't about having more gear. It's about understanding what truly works and why. Thanks for watching Forgotten Survival. If you enjoyed this exploration into forgotten survival science, subscribe, because the past still has plenty of secrets waiting to be uncovered.